Guys, as if this case couldn't get worse, it gets worse and worse and worse. And just, I can't. New information has dropped and a new interview has dropped. And this interview is between Jennifer Soto, Madeline Soto's mother, and law enforcement. It is chilling to listen to this woman speak because she is so nonchalant about the fact that her daughter is unalived. And again, okay, let's rewind. This took place in April of this year. So that was after Madeline Soto was found deceased because of this monster Stephen Stearns right here, who was Jennifer's boyfriend, on again, off again boyfriend. As this interview went on, it was really clear that Jennifer didn't know as much about her daughter as she did Stephen and her dog, especially the morning of Madeline's disappearance. She also doesn't sound like a woman who lost her 13-year-old daughter. And her memory appears to be selective at best, if you ask me. Many people are alluding to the fact that Jen takes medication and is on pills, and that could be why her affect or her emotions are so dampered, but I don't know. She really has shown little to no concern about her daughter this whole entire time, and if you've been following the story, you know exactly what I mean. But basically in this interview, police just keep kind of cornering Jennifer in some of her weird, contradictory, backtracking stories. The first one that popped out to me was the fact that officers were like, okay, so Madeline, what would she take with her when she would go to bed? Or as Stephen Stearns put it, into her nest that he'd create for her. Because either Madeline was sleeping in her room, which was really a makeshift bedroom in the living room, or she was sleeping in Jen's bed with Jen and Stephen, or she was just sleeping in a room with Stephen. But Jen said that Madeline would bring her stuffies or stuffed animals, but they refer to them as stuffies, or her blankets with her. And police were like, well, that's really interesting because you said you sent Madeline to sleep in room 4. Yeah, more details, go look at my past videos. But you sent her to sleep in room 4, the one you were renting out, to go to sleep with Stefan because you needed a good night of sleep. And if that's the case, why was there like no bedding? Why was the bedroom not set up? Why were her stuffies not in there? Why were her blankies not in there? Like, make it make sense. And she's just kind of like, I don't know. She dances around the questions a lot. Then on top of that, officers were like, okay, so in the morning when Madeline would go to school, would she like come into your bedroom and say, bye, Mom, like I'm leaving? And Jen answers, I would hope so. I would hope she would come say bye. Like, this is not a hypothetical question, Jen Soto. This is just a yes or a no kind of answer. And you said you didn't see your daughter the morning she went missing. So, okay. So that leads us to believe and leads investigators to believe that you did not see your daughter because your daughter didn't come say bye to you that morning, and then she goes missing and you don't find that to be weird? Like, and obviously this is after Madeline's already unalived, but regardless, Jen thought nothing of it. Like, that's weird. So Jen kind of gives like a little rundown of what she did that morning and how she had a doctor's appointment to go get blood work, and then later she was supposed to have a doctor's appointment, but she canceled it because it was like a $300 Botox appointment. I don't know, so removed, but whatever. And cops are like, okay, and what time was Madeline dropped off at school? And she goes, oh, I dropped Madeline off at the church. And they're like, whoa, wait a second. What do you mean? What do you mean you dropped her off? Like, I thought Stefan dropped her off. And she was like, oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, Stefan told me he dropped her off at the church because she was embarrassed of being dropped off at school in his car. Yeah. And police are like, okay, well, you keep interchanging I with Stefan, so you weren't even, like, present in the car. And she was just like, yeah, Stefan did it, like, whatever. And the officer was just like, okay, but you're interchanging this here, and you've interchanged it in past interviews you've done with the media. So, like, that's weird. Then the police went on to address the fact that, Jennifer acted like a very concerned parent when it came to her going to visit her biological father and sleep over, because there was like a text message between Jen and the bio father saying like, oh yeah, well, I'm nervous. Make sure nobody touches her and nobody's taking pictures of her underneath bathroom doors, which, mind you, Stephen Stearns did that to people. And then apparently Jen also wouldn't let Maddie have sleepovers with friends because she was worried about Madeline being assaulted. So police are like really getting that information out of her. So, someone like me or you or whoever is watching the interview is like, okay, so you were so worried about your daughter getting assaulted at sleepovers, but you let her sleep with this monster routinely, like all the time? And Jen's just like, ah, like just giggling about it, like nonchalantly. Like, read the room. So then police asked Jennifer about a text message that she sent to Stefan that was like, oh, Madeline can't sleep with me anymore. I can't risk it. And police were like, well, what does that mean? And she was just like didn't really have anything to say about it. Then police were also like, yeah, so you used to track Madeline's menstrual cycle, right? And she's like, yeah, I had a calendar app. I tracked it. And they're like, okay, so she, based off of that, she should have been having her menstrual cycle at the beginning of February. And Jen's like, yeah. And they're like, all right, well, did you notice if she used any of her menstrual, supplies? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And they're like, well, she didn't. It doesn't seem like she did. So did you ask her about that? And Jen was just like, oh, well, she skipped periods before. She's missed them. I really didn't think it was that big of a deal. And they were like, okay, but the beginning of March was coming up, which means she was due again for her cycle. And she's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just happens, She just seems completely detached and just removed from this whole situation. And many people online are speculating that Madeline was pregnant and that's what led to Stefan unaliving her. I think that's really probable, and especially now since we know that police are alluding to the fact that Madeline missed her period. This is not sounding good at all, and I'm afraid that our worst fears are possibly going to be true. Police also mentioned something very strange. They mentioned that Madeline used Miralax and had trouble going to the bathroom, and Jen's like, oh yeah, I brought her to the doctor a lot, and they were trying to figure out what the situation was, and they're like, okay, but did she ever tell you of any bleeding or, any injuries? And she's just like, oh no, but apparently there were injuries and such, but mom is completely denying it. So police are like, interesting. And if you're like me, your mind is going to really not great places. And I don't know if what I'm thinking is the reason for this, if you know what I'm saying. Obviously, I can't go into this because of TikTok guidelines and everything, but it's just not sounding good. But just the fact that this woman is so nonchalant, ma'am, your daughter has been unalived in such a brutal way. You just found out that your on again, off again boyfriend has been SAing her since she was 11 years old, and you were just like, well, yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. Oh yeah, I do interchange Stefan and I a lot. I don't know. And people are wondering, why isn't Jennifer Soto locked up? Why is she not behind bars? And other people are thinking it's probably because she got immunity. She's possibly going to be testifying against Stefan Stern in court if this goes to trial. I'm not sure. There's a lot of speculation going on, so we're going to have to see. And of course, I will let you know as soon as we find out more information. But let me know what you guys think about this interview. And if you haven't listened to it, head over to The Docket on YouTube. He's a great true crime kind of, I don't know, reporter. He's just a true crime content creator like me who really stands for Freedom of Information Act and is the reason we have so much information about this case. So go check out his channel if you want to hear the full interview. And yeah, let me know what you think about this because this is absolutely bonkers.